Hey everybody, welcome back to the Extreme Weather Zone. In this video, we're going to be looking at the multi-day severe weather outbreak. It's going to be starting tomorrow on April Fool's Day, and this is not a joke, as well as the eclipse forecast. And it's not looking good in Texas, actually, at all. If you're new here, please give the video a like and hit the subscribe button for more severe weather updates. And right now, here's a look at the current satellite imagery. Right now, it actually is pretty active over the western U.S., and this is going to be fueling the severe weather outbreak that's going to be happening tomorrow and Tuesday. And right now, you have kind of a couple of things happening. You have a low here, a low pressure system. It's kind of occluded, but you kind of have this cold front that kind of goes down through the southwest, and then you actually have like a cutoff low that's kind of going around this system, and then you have a warm front here, and what's happening is you kind of have, even right now, some thunderstorms firing up, kind of rotating around this whole kind of ridge thing, and this is going to kind of be fueling the severe weather event tomorrow. And this is a pretty significant severe weather risk for tomorrow, April Fool's Day. And this is this is serious. It's not actually a joke, or like, at least I don't think it is. But basically, we have an enhanced risk of severe weather for kind of eastern Oklahoma, northwestern Arkansas, southeastern Kansas, southern Missouri, even southern Illinois, even a little bit of Indiana. But this is there's a 5% chance of tornadoes, but the main kind of risk that's driving this is going to be wind and hail. You have a significant 30% risk of hail for eastern Oklahoma, also a little bit of northwestern Arkansas into Missouri, and also far northern Texas. Extreme northern Texas is also in this significant risk of hail. That's going to be hail over 2 inches, I believe. And then we have a significant wind risk also, another 30% chance of wind for a similar area. And remember, this is a multi-day severe weather risk, so it extends into Tuesday, where we have another enhanced risk, and this is for, there's going to be, wind and hail, but also tornadoes. There's the most significant risk of tornadoes is going to be in Ohio and Kentucky, also into a little bit of West Virginia, apparently. And so let's take a look at the 500 millibar pattern. You see this is a positively tilted trough right here. And usually that isn't necessarily as exciting for severe weather as a negatively tilted trough is, but there is going to be a lot of kind of shearing and instability and everything that will line up for a lot of severe weather, even if it isn't a huge tornado risk. And this is going into, as we actually see, this is it on Monday, so this is tomorrow, and this is going into Monday evening, like about 7 p.m. on Monday. You actually have a lot of diffluence over this area. This is that severe weather area, and you have very strong mid-level winds of possibly all the way up to about 100 knots, which is 115 miles an hour. So these are some pretty strong mid-level winds, and there's diffluence, which means the wind is spreading out, and this is favorable for severe weather in that area. And then, interestingly enough, you actually have, you kind of have this positively tilted trough, but then you also have a kind of a low that is forming, which will somewhat counteract that extreme positive tilt. You're going to have a lot of dynamics that will be favorable for a severe weather event. And then as we continue, this kind of goes eastward, and this is on Tuesday afternoon going into Tuesday evening. You have some really strong winds of over 100 knots screaming over over the Ohio, Kentucky, kind of into West Virginia area, and you also have this low kind of there as well. And this is going to be favorable for a severe weather event. This is the HRRR simulated reflectivity, and you actually can see this is what's happening this kind of this evening and tonight. There's going to be some kind of supposedly elevated thunderstorms, elevated convection that's going to be happening over northern Illinois, northern Indiana, and this kind of moves eastward over time, going into tomorrow morning. And then what happens is, then by late morning into the I guess early to mid afternoon, you start having these kind of storms that start to fire up in Illinois, also possibly in Missouri, and these kind of go eastward, and they could be severe because there's going to be a lot of that wind. There's going to be instability, a lot of surging moisture as well, and this is going to lead to possible severe weather in this kind of highlighted area. And then what happens is you get some supercells firing off to the west in eastern Oklahoma, and that's going to be a lot of hail that these are supposed to produce. And then there is the chance that some of these could produce tornadoes in this favorable environment, and then that kind of goes eastward, and then it some of this kind of looks like a mess, but then you do have the potential for some discrete storms before it kind of merges together into a line, which would produce stronger winds, but not as much of a tornado event. And then this will continue later, and you see some more thunderstorms developing Tuesday afternoon, maybe around 1 p.m. or so, and that's just the simulated reflectivity. But then we actually look at the CAPE. This is the mixed layer CAPE. This is showing that there's going to be some capping. Look at all this. A lot of this is capped, but some of the capping is going to be weak. When you have the higher instability with some weak capping, that can favor tornadoes and some really strong thunderstorms if they're able to really break through that cap. That's a weaker cap, then it doesn't prevent storms from forming. It actually kind of stores that instability, and then when the cap breaks, then it turns out really bad. And so this is in the early afternoon. You actually have some pretty good instability over southern Illinois and places like that. And so this is 1,500 to over 2,000 joules of CAPE in some of these areas. So this is pretty high. And then off to the west, this is closer to the evening time frame, maybe 5 to 7 p.m. You get a lot more instability that builds up, and then it starts to uncap as well. And this is 2,500 to even 3,000 joules of CAPE in eastern Oklahoma, also into Missouri. And this is going to be pretty favorable. This is the low-level jet because that will intensify the risk for tornadoes later on, but this is going into later on Monday evening, but then kind of going into the nighttime time frame. There could be the low-level jet does strengthen to like about 50 to 55 knots, which is really good for severe weather. But the thing is, when these storms are really firing up in Oklahoma, for example, eastern Oklahoma, the low-level jet is very weak, so this is not a big tornado, favorable tornado event. And then you do see that jet does intensify as you do have that low kind of forming around that area. But then the thing is, then as we go into Tuesday, this is going into Tuesday, and the jet is a lot stronger. You have 45 to even 55 knots. So you have the low-level jet is pretty strong as you go into southern Ohio, also Kentucky, and West Virginia. The dew points are also pretty good for this whole kind of event, is you have dew points in the mid to upper 60s through this whole thing, even possibly at 70. Not where these storms are really down in Arkansas or anything, but you do have really good dew points for severe weather. And then this is going to actually surge up into the Ohio and Kentucky and West Virginia, where there's that enhanced risk on Tuesday. Now, the supercell composite is pretty interesting. It's pretty high for Missouri, but this is where some of these storms are trying to form before the main kind of dry line and the big severe weather outbreak kind of comes in from the further west. This is those storms that were trying to form maybe in the mid afternoon. Supercell composite is between a 7 to a 10 in some of these areas, but then it really is pretty bad looking down in like Arkansas and southeastern Oklahoma in some of these areas. But basically conditions are pretty favorable for some supercells. That's pretty much the thing. If they don't all kind of just merge together into a line or something like that happens, these conditions are really favorable for a severe weather event. And this is even, you can even see some really high supercell composite values down into Texas. This is around 7 p.m. where these storms are really trying to get going, and you have 10, 15 in the supercell composite index. And then the STP, the significant tornado parameters, also good in some of these areas, like especially down in Arkansas for some reason. But other places it actually isn't great, but it's pretty good. Like really all you need is like a 2 to produce some tornadoes. You can have, well, really you can have tornadoes with a wide range of STP values, but this is maybe a 2 or 3. This is not bad. It's not unfavorable. And then the thing is, it's going to get wild when we look at what's going to happen tomorrow with the STP values. Now, this is the helicity tracks. This is showing some rotating potential even tomorrow morning. This is in Missouri. You have a pretty good, chance of rotating storms. It's not a guarantee of tornadoes, but it's showing you do have the significant potential for rotating storms. Even in Oklahoma, you have in southern Oklahoma, northern Texas, you have also these helicity tracks. Now, this is where it gets pretty interesting as we go into Tuesday. This is possibly an even more significant event than the April Fool's Day severe weather outbreak. And so we kind of have these storms kind of going through even on Tuesday morning, kind of the NAM model kind of showing curved storms, but then this goes into Tuesday evening. We have a line. Now, we'll have to see if this is just a line. It might not produce a bunch of tornadoes. You can have tornadoes in a line, but other than that, like, this is kind of a line of storms which will produce damaging winds if this takes place. But you do have a lot of shear actually happening, especially around that low. You're going to get a lot of shear as well as that surging moisture that could lead to some strong tornadoes in this tomorrow. Not tomorrow, on Tuesday. And then you have a decent amount of CAPE. You have 1,500 to 2,000 joules, and possibly even elevated a little more towards 2,500 joules, possibly in some areas. And then this is not really capped. Now that could be a good thing or a bad thing, because depending on what the capping does. If it's totally uncapped, that might not help to produce those really strong tornadoes. but the moisture is there for a lot of severe weather on Tuesday. Dew points in the mid 60s, 65 degrees ahead of this, and then that kind of cold front comes in and smashes it down. But those dew points are very favorable for storms on Tuesday. But look at this. This is the supercell composite for Tuesday. On the NAM model is showing at least 10 to 15 of the supercell composite in Ohio and northern Kentucky on Tuesday evening, even getting close to a 20 in some of these areas. That would be pretty significant if this actually takes place. And also the STP, the significant tornado perimeter, is really high. Like you have an 8 to over a 10 in southern Ohio. So this, if things actually come together correctly, this could be a big tornado event. And the April Fool's Day event might not turn out so exciting, but this is definitely a big deal. And then we actually have some of these. The helicity tracks are not too impressive on the NAM model, except it does show some really strong helicity down in Oklahoma. I don't know what that's about, but this is not too extreme looking for Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia. We'll have to see about that. But also, the funny thing is you have this big severe weather event, and then that low actually jumps over it kind of goes, or you get a new low at least that kind of forms off the East Coast, and then all those storms kind of on Monday and Tuesday kind of race through the central and eastern U.S., and then it goes off the East Coast with possible severe weather down in Florida. But then you get all this kind of cold air that comes diving down behind the system, and you have a strong cold front, strong warm front. This is a very dynamic system now, and you have a lot of heavy snow on the backside of the storm, and then it kind of stalls a little bit as it occludes, and then it does go away. But there's actually the potential for some pretty heavy snowfall until Saturday. This is possibly a good foot or two of snow in Maine and New Hampshire, Vermont, even New York could get in some of the mountains. They could have maybe up to 3 feet in some extreme locations, over 30 inches. You have Maine, at least possibly a foot of snow, and then northern Pennsylvania could have 4 to 8 inches. So this could also bring a winter storm. So you have the severe weather and then a kind of winter storm side to this as well. Now the eclipse forecast is actually not looking good for Texas. Here's the eclipse forecast from the National Weather Service blend of models, is actually showing quite cloudy over Texas. The Euro model does not look good either. It shows showing rain over Texas during the eclipse. That's not good. So Texas is not looking good for this eclipse. And funny enough, climatologically, Texas and places down here are usually going to be clearer. But this time it's actually kind of reversed, where, except, up here you do have a lot of clouds. But places like the Northeast, usually they're climatologically more cloudy around this time frame. But of course, they're going to have pretty clear skies, which is going to be, that's interesting to how that's taking place. And this is the National Weather Service blend of models shows that. And then you have, this is the GEFS is really cloudy over a lot of places. It's looking even worse for Texas, like 100% cloudy over where most of the people are actually going to be watching the eclipse, and actually where the totality is longest. And then the same thing on the CMC model, which is a really good model. It's showing basically not too cloudy for most of the U.S. except down in Texas. Yeah, great. Not. It's like you actually have, 70 to 80% cloud cover over southern Texas, 60 to 70% over most of the eclipse viewing area. It's like, yeah, that's not good. So, yeah, it might be tough to see the eclipse along this path of totality down in Texas. Thanks for watching this video. Please be sure to give it a like, comment down below, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more severe weather updates. Thanks for watching Extreme Weather Zone.